Hi, I'm Tanya. I'm an alcoholic. Wow, I have a lot of gratitude sitting here on this chair. Being able to say that I've strung some just 1 days at a time together, and that it's ended up being 9 years, despite me, is quite something. It took me a long time, as all of us, I guess, to find recovery, and before I did, I didn't think I would. I really, so my rock bottom happened long before I got into recovery, and by that time I was already like I was ready to die. Like I was like, this is how I am, and I'm going to end up in a gutter in some dorpie in the middle of South Africa, and no one's going to know, and I'm going to be like, you know, that's just what's going to happen. And I was okay with that. I was like, this is what happens to people like me, and it's cool. Like I'm just going to, but then that's not what happened, clearly, because here I am. And yeah, I think in the beginning, my recovery really was that just 1 day at a time. Sometimes 1 hour at a time, sometimes 5 minutes at a time, and it was like that for a long time. Like my desire to use was not just lifted immediately, as it is for some people. I can say today it's gone. The obsession, the desire, gone. But for the first 2 years of my recovery, I really struggled. Whenever I had big feelings and things going on, like I still wanted to use. I wanted to drink, I wanted to not feel what was going on. And it was through the power of this fellowship that didn't happen, you know, because there was always someone I could call, something that I could go to, a meeting or something. There was something. And it was the people in this fellowship that were there for me in those first 2 years, you know. And like at the time, I guess I didn't see it. Just like you don't see a higher power working in your life in active addiction until you come in to recovery and you do the steps and you see, oh, okay, I wasn't just lucky, you know, there was some kind of plan. And it's the same thing. I can see that in my early recovery, that it wasn't me, because I still wanted to do, you know, but I didn't somehow, and here I am, you know. I'm going to speak a little bit briefly about how it was before I started using, mainly because I think it's quite pertinent. I think for me, I was very ashamed growing up. Like I can remember being ashamed for as long as I can remember. Ashamed and angry, those were my two feelings. And eventually they just, yeah, by the time I came into recovery, I had two feelings: angry, sad. Angry and sad. And then happy when I was under the influence, that's it. But I needed to have something to be happy, so that didn't really count, you know. But I think underneath that, there was shame, anger, and a lot of fear, you know, from growing up. And why it's pertinent for me to mention all of that stuff is, for so long I lied about it. Like I wanted to pretend that how it was when I grew up, it wasn't like that. I thought if people knew how it was for me, they would reject me. So I did. I lied about it. I left home when I was 17, and I just created this whole new me. Like that's what I did, because I think I thought that was the problem. Like I needed to get away from my family, and I needed to get away from that and anything that connected me to that, and then I wouldn't be the way I was. Turns out that's not how it works. Problem was me all along, and not my family. But my family is not a great family, you know. There's still issues with them now, you know, and that healing has taken a lot longer, and that's okay, you know. they are not in a program. They don't have to. My mom, I think she is an alcoholic, but she's somehow surviving her life, and she's not, or she's at a point where she's never going to find recovery, and that's okay. She doesn't have to, right? I do. She doesn't, and that's been really hard. I really thought when I came, like all alcoholics, I just wanted to belong. I wanted that sense of belonging, and I never got it from my family. Never. Turns out, like, I was, like, part of that was right. So the person who was my father is not my father, but I didn't know that. Nobody in my family thought it was a good idea to tell me that at any stage. In fact, it was only in recovery when I was 37 that my mom decided to say, oh yeah, this, like one of those like Luke Skywalker moments. I had that. This is your father. And I was like, thanks, I don't care, like, thanks, but I really, it's thanks, a bit late now, But I felt that because, like, I was different. And even now, I look at my family, I'm different from my brothers and sisters. There's always been this feeling of me being different. And I am different, I'm the same too, don't get me wrong. Environment plays a big part, but I am different. And I struggled with that. I didn't want to be like them, because, special and different. But at the same time, it was a sense of I don't belong to these people who are my family, and that I should feel that feeling of belonging, and I didn't. And there was a lot of other abuse that went on in my family. The man who I knew as my father sexually abused me, he physically abused me, he mentally abused me. There was a lot of bad stuff going down in that house. And because I thought he was my father, that was pretty messed up. I didn't know, So I had this feeling of like, but also I'm just I didn't drink on that stuff. I didn't drink because like I couldn't remember it. So my way of dealing with stuff is I disassociate, and that's what I did from a young age. So that stuff was going on, and I would just go somewhere else, and I couldn't remember it until like in my 20s I started having weird memories, and I was like, that's a bit like messed up. And I wasn't sure if they were real, but turns out they were. I got confirmation of that too, that because my mom knew what was going on. And because of her alcoholism, she was not in a position to do anything about that. And so obviously I hated her for a long time, because mother, you're meant to be able to protect your child. Well, it turns out sometimes when you're sick, you can't do that, and I've learned that in recovery. Like, I have forgiven my mom, and I never ever thought I would ever be able, do you know what, it's one thing sitting and writing the step work and writing amends list, but it's a different thing to actually live in recovery and know that you have forgiven somebody. Because I know that I see my mom, she can drive me up the tree because she's stubborn and she's delusional. But I don't carry 40 years. I don't fight with her. She can lose her cool at me, which she does all the time because she still behaves like a 20-year-old. And I'm like, okay, cool, thanks. I don't need to put up with this. I'm going to leave. I'll call me when you chill again. And I leave. I don't go leave and drink and go and kick the dog. Not that I ever kick dogs. I love animals. But you know what I mean. The metaphorical dog. And so that's the power of this program, that it's that I don't carry that stuff. And in my early recovery, all of that was just this vision. It was people told me. I came to meetings and they said, that could happen. And I was like, wow, that sounds great, but not me. There's no way I will ever forgive those people for what they did to me. Turns out I have. Some some things I haven't really forgiven to that extent, and that's also okay. Like, that's also been a hard thing for me to learn, that like, recovery is a process, and it's not like I magically work the steps and tra-la-la, everything is like, no. It comes when it's ready to come. You know, when I am, as long as I work this program, when I'm in a position to deal with things, then they come, and I deal with them, and I've just got to be open-minded. Like, and thank goodness. I remember when I came into recovery, my sponsor at the time said to me, great, you come in, if you're turning the tap off, and you're going to spend the rest of your life, like, with a bucket, chucking out the water. And I was like, that sounds awful, you know? Like, I was like, because at that stage I was paddling, you know? I used for 20 odd years. I had a teenage daughter when I came into recovery, who's now an adult daughter, and I had made a mess of everything because I'd been using the whole time. So I was like, ooh, you know, and I just, the wreckage of my past was, there was like, I didn't think that I would be able to fix that. But I have. Like, some things are still a little bit like, you know. I mean, I think like all alcoholics, I'll often look at my life and go, oh, I should be there. I should be where that is. Like, why is she doing that? Like, what's wrong with me? But when I'm really able to just be present and like take a look at my life, I can go, wow, dude, like you are here. How? You know, and like be grateful for where it is. I know I'm jumping all over the show, but I guess that's okay. So yeah, family messed up. I started using when I was young, but before I started using, and this is how I know I was born an alcoholic, and also I just want to clarify again about that stuff at home happening is not what made me an addict, because my sister had lived in the same house, had the same things happen to her, and she's not an alcoholic or an addict or any of that. She's not. In fact, she's lovely, has 3 kids, is married, goes to church. She's just this paragon of domesticity. She's lovely. We don't like, we're different. But yeah, you know what I mean? So if it was that stuff that made me the way, it's not. Because then she would have been too, and she's not, you know. And this program showed me that. I remember coming to meetings, and that's why like identification is so important for me. Like when I sit in a meeting, and if the only thing I get from somebody's share is, oh, me too, then that's it. Then it's done its job. Because every share that I heard, that I could connect to something and go, me too. So I kept on coming back. That was that sense of belonging, because I'd never felt that before, you know. And what would happen is I'd hear people share, and they had great childhoods, wonderful, like, and they were just as messed up as me. And I was like, clearly, it's a disease. There's something else here that is just not right. It's not that stuff. And I'm really lucky that I could see that, because otherwise I think I could have been stuck in that. I could have been stuck in that for a long time, that I'm too messed up to recover, that people like me don't recover. And that's how I felt near the end of my addiction, that it was like, this is just what happens, like I'm a statistic. Like these bad things happen, and then I started drinking and doing bad stuff, and now I'm going to die in the gutter. That's statistic, you know. But now I'm a good statistic, which is crazy too. So yeah, I started using when I was young, alcohol first thing, well I suppose smoking, but that's not really a thing really. But what was around that for me was the feelings, and I remember the first time I drank, I felt like everybody else. And I know that's not how other people feel when they drink. They drink and they feel, oh, I don't feel like myself, and they don't like it. I was like, oh, finally, I'm just like everybody else. And it made me more confident. I hooked up with a guy, which was a big deal. When I was 14, all my friends had boyfriends. I didn't. I was like, and I hooked up with a guy, and I was like, yes, this is how you do it. And I have a plan now. And apparently I was really funny. I don't remember. I blacked out. First time I drank, so I remember nothing. I remember everybody telling me the next morning, and I was like, cool, like I did that shit. They were like, yeah, you were hilarious. And I was like, yeah, that's me. And that became my thing every time. So it was really convenient because, like I said earlier, that disassociation that comes naturally to me when I drank, same thing. Like I could just be in a bubble and totally disconnected from myself. And that was my safe space. My safe space was to not be in reality, to not feel anything. And when I drank for the first time, I was like, hallelujah. We have the answer. And everything changed. From being an A-class student, from having friends. So like I still have some friends on Facebook, I don't know why. Like we're not friends in real life, that I was friends with before in high school when I started. And they are all accomplished women. And then there's me, and every time they chat, and now it's different, like I don't have shame, but for years, like every time I ran into one of them, I was like, oh, what are you doing with your life? Well, I'm a waitress, or I'm working at a bar, or like, I shouldn't have been that person. Like I am smart, and I was smart, and I just was like, I stopped doing that stuff. I didn't want to do it. From the moment I drank, I just wanted to drink. And I wanted to hang out with the kids that drank. And I didn't want to be too clever for boys, because nobody wants a smart ass. Somebody said that, and I was like, that's how it's going to be. So I changed, and I pretended I was somebody else to get what I wanted. And that's my whole, there we go. That's my whole act of drinking, me changing various things. And that's what I did. I did for 20 odd years trying to fix the outside things. I am going to, if I get the right boyfriend, the right job, the right haircut, if I wear the right clothing, if I live in the right area, all of that stuff, all this outside stuff. Another thing that's important for me to mention is that, so I fell pregnant when I was quite young. I was 18 when I had my daughter. I'd already dropped out of school by then and left home and statistics. And I stopped drinking when I was pregnant, and I stopped doing my thing. And I was like, clearly I am not an alcoholic, because by that stage I had been in crack dens seeing people smoke crack with 9 months pregnant. They had problems, not me. I stopped. Earth Mother. Like, truth is though, I think my daughter, the minute I stopped breastfeeding, she was 4 months, and I remember looking at books, and that there were all these books that said this is when you should put your child on solids. I was like, good, that's when I stopped breastfeeding, and that's when I came. So I'd already planned. You know what I mean? I don't think normal moms do that. They actually want to like nourish their children for as long as possible. I was like, oh, that's what she needs. Good, because I'm going to start drinking then. Like I already knew. And that's exactly what happened. You know, so I stopped for that period of time. And because I held on to that for the rest of my time out there in the bush, thinking that I don't have a problem because of that. The truth is, I was in my first treatment center before my daughter was, I think she was 2 or 3. I was 21. So yeah, it gets a bit mixed up because our birthdays are close together, but yeah. And I never was able to successfully stop again until I got institutionalized. That was just my process. And I did. That was, she was almost 3 the first time that happened. And the next 11, 12 years, I just was like fighting for my right to drink, really. When I went in there, they told me, I could see I had a problem with other substances, but I didn't think I had a problem with alcohol. I was like, come on, I'm 21. Everybody drinks. And the truth is, I didn't know anybody who didn't. So I was like, are you people, I'll stop that stuff. I'm not stopping that. I didn't. I got kicked out of treatment. You do. And I was drinking soon afterwards, and it took me a while to get back to the substance that had caused the initial problem, but I got there eventually. And then from then on, it was just years of not being able to stop, and alcohol being my constant companion. So even if I did stop using substances, I drank. I never stopped drinking because I didn't see that as a problem. I didn't. And then there was all of that trying to rearrange and like trying to fix everything. I was always trying to find the perfect relationship, because if you love me, then I'm worthy of love, and then I'm going to be okay, right? And like that never happened. I remember having this boyfriend he still doesn't speak to me. He's one of most people I was in a relationship with during active ended up in rehab, therapy, or they just don't speak to me anymore. So I don't know where they are. Probably left the country. But that was just kind of how I rolled. You know, if you were with me, things were not going to end well. I didn't see it that way. I was like, I pick losers. Like they were the problem. Turns out I was. Anyway, and he was a really good guy. And I remember telling him, oh, this is going to happen. We're going to go out drinking. And after a few drinks, I'm going to get a little bit feisty because I'm going to want to go and use drugs. He didn't believe me. Like I would tell him this stuff and he did not believe what I was getting up to. Little did he know. And my plan with that was that he just needed to take me home. At that point, of course, simple. And if I get really fussy, just lock the door of the room and just leave me. That was my plan. Lock me up. So I remember him trying that one night, and we were in a car going up Town Hill in Maritzburg. I lived in Howick, and I was opening the car door on the highway. I'm going to fucking jump out, because I wanted to do what I was going to do. And this poor guy is like, what the actual hell? Maniac, you know what I mean? I would do whatever it took. And I know at that moment, I was quite prepared to jump. I was ready. If he didn't stop, I was going to, because I didn't really care. I just wanted to get something in my body. And that's chilling when I think about it now, you know. And also how, like that reading, the daily reflection spoke about responsibility, how it was his responsibility. Please take me home. Sure, I might jump out of a car, but hey, your problem to get me home. And that's what would happen. Every time I did break free, because I broke free. Like I was a treat. It was his fault. He did something wrong. I don't blame him for not talking to me anymore. His sister does, she's great. But he doesn't. Anyway, that's just one little clip of what I was like, you know. Any lengths. By the time I came into recovery, like I said, my rock bottom had actually happened quite a while ago. Things were good for me when I came into recovery, which is kind of weird. Right? But I'd finally got all of those things together. I had everything in my life was peachy on the outside. And I was like, now finally, I will stop. And I didn't. I could not stop. Even when I had everything that I wanted, the financial success, the art, like everything, the prestige, I couldn't stop. And that's when I really knew, oh shit, you know. And then my journey in recovery really started. Did I get it right the first time? No. There were a few treatment centers, and also coming into the rooms independently of that and trying to do it. I would come in, I would be told something, and there'd always be that one thing that I'd be like, yeah, I'll do that, but no. When I started coming in the time before this last time, they told me I needed to change my behavior around relationships, and I was like, I don't think so. Drugs, alcohol, I'm great with relationships. I've had many, I'm good with this. Like, I don't need to change it. You can tell me what to do with substances, but I'm just going to carry on like that. I did. I relapsed and took somebody down with me, because that's what we do, right? And so this last time, I was okay. I'm willing to look at my behavior and I'm willing to do everything. And also because my last relapse, I was the last person to see it coming. I think everybody else did. Like, I was quite, other people did. But like, I didn't know I was going to use up until the thoughts came into my head. And it was like that. Just like that. I literally woke up, I was in this toxic relationship. My plan was actually to go to his house and beat the crap out of him, because that seemed like a good idea. And then on the way there, I was like, but no, I'm going to use, I'll show him what he's done to me. And then I got there and I used with him, and I didn't beat the crap out of him, because it was never about that, right? It was never about the feelings. It was about me just wanting to justify what I do. So yeah, that didn't end too well. And I ended up in treatment again. And I was, so to be honest, at the beginning of my recovery, I didn't want to change. I was in treatment. I thought I'll be here for a month. Let things die down. I wanted to go back to that same person that I'd wanted to beat over the head with a stick. That was my plan at the time. Seemed like a good plan. And yeah, I didn't want to. I thought I was one of those unfortunates that because I'd been here and I'd done stuff. I'd done service. I'd kind of done some of the steps. Stopped at 4. I mean, 4 is heavy. Who wants to see their parts and shit? Like, I didn't want to do that, so I just carried on, and like, so the last time I was like, okay, because I was the last person to know, and I couldn't trust myself anymore. I mean, I hadn't been trusting myself for a long time, but at that point I was like, how? Like, there were no, like, cravings. I hadn't been running around thinking about drugs for weeks and fighting. There was nothing. There was just one day, angry, use. Just like that, all bets are off. And it was like, whoa. So that made me willing. And I was willing to do whatever. And then there were other things that happened to me in my early recovery, which kind of meant that I stayed in treatment when I probably should have, like, I would have left. I wasn't going to, but I knew if I left, I would die, you know, so because of these things that had happened to me. So I just stayed, you know, I stayed because I had nothing better to do. And there was this part of me that didn't want to die. That was a new voice. So I just started, it was a very small voice, and I started listening to that voice. And I started working these steps as written in this book. And things started to change for me hugely, because I started to take responsibility for my stuff. I started to, like, if I think about recovery and how I am now, and I was thinking about it on the drive here, like, I feel empowered, and I know I'm powerless, and I'm powerless over my disease. But step 2 tells me I get power back. And you do, eventually. I will never have power over alcohol, but I have power in my life today because of these steps. And when I'm actively working a program, I can make decisions. Like, I couldn't in the beginning. For the first 4 years, my sponsor told me pretty much when to fart. Like, it was just... And luckily, she was a really good sponsor at that. Like, there was nothing. I didn't do anything without her telling me what to do, because I couldn't trust myself, right? But now it's not like that. Like, I don't have to, I can sometimes make decisions, and sometimes they're bad decisions, but then I can take responsibility for them. Like, I can deal with the consequences. When I came into recovery, I could not deal with the consequences, because the consequences for me were death and, like, losing my child and, like, they were bad and they were heavy, and like now there'll be consequences, but not like that. And like I've also realized like I'm always going to mess up, because that's how I am. Every day I wake up and I'm Tanya alcoholic, and some days that means Tanya alcoholic does stupid things. And then at the end of the day, I get to do an inventory and I get to look at my life and go, okay, you could have done that a bit better. And sometimes it'll be a few weeks where I'm like, oh, you did that thing again. And then eventually I get really sick of going, you did that thing again. And then I change. These steps give me the power to choose. The two most powerful steps for me were step 6, I hate it. It's my worst step. Hate it. Because I hate being like reminded of my shortcomings, because I'm wonderful. Like, I don't want to know that. I just want to know how wonderful I am and being so aware of them, and I struggle with that. But for the first time, instead of having angry, sad, I had all these other things. Oh, you're judgmental. That's resentment. It's not just anger. I had this whole new vocabulary of what was going on. To me, they felt like different voices in my head. Because before there'd been one voice. And it was like, wake up, get off your face, go to sleep, and do it again. And that's all I heard. And then recovery gave me these new things. And I could hear them. And which gave me like I could decide whether I was going to carry on being judgmental. And what started to happen with those defects is I felt uncomfortable. I was a prize, like I really was. And I was nasty, bitchy, but I recycled and I fed homeless people. So I thought like, I'm okay, like balance, but I'll steal from your kids too. So but I thought I was nice. I was actually awful, I still see how some of my closest friends are still afraid. Like I'm over 9 years and I did something last weekend. I went out for dinner. And I went out afterwards with some friends, but it was a spontaneous decision, and I'm not usually like that. And because I didn't come home, my housemates were like, "What are you?" Because that's not what Recovery Tanya does. Recovery Tanya says, "I'm going to do this," and I do it. I'm reliable. I'm consistent. But suddenly, I made a decision, and I didn't, and they were worried about me, and they called. Should we be worried? Like, where are you? Like, you haven't come home. And I was like, oh, people remember, do you know what I mean? Even though I have changed, because I've hurt people. I made people worry about me. And that's okay. It's a reminder that I don't want to be that person. The other step for me that was huge, step 8. Because that's really where I started taking responsibility. Like step 4, yes, I saw my part and now I had a different way to do things. And I could let go of a lot of that anger. But it just led to step 6, which meant more problems. Step 8 was where the relief, because it was the map. Oh, if I don't do this, I'll never feel like that. And I'll have control over these shortcomings. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, finally, I had a map to life. And there are amends on my original amends. I've just never done that stuff ever again. I'm very proud to say that over the past 9 years, I have not hit anyone. I have not been hit. I've not stolen. I'm not going to say I've never lied. I have. I have not done any of the stuff I did to my daughter. Anything. My daughter and I have such a wonderful relationship. And I don't deserve it. I do not deserve it. I'm not going to say she should hate me. She should feel exactly how she feels. But we have a great relationship. I have relationship with my family. It's not great, but it's there, so that I can show up and be there and keep my side of the street clean with no expectations. I do every now and again. I have them, but again, like I have a sponsor and I have a program that reminds me and it can bring me back so I don't get sucked into that drama. I have become the person I always thought I would be. Like I was I talked a big talk back in the day, and like I said in the beginning, I used to pretend to be all these things because I thought that's what you needed me to be. I'm not saying I am those things, but I am the person that I wanted to be then. I live with integrity, I still recycle, but it's kind of better now because I don't steal from people. I am consistent at work, I have a career, I study, I'm self-sufficient, I've traveled, I've done the most amazing things in recovery. The most amazing things. I love recovery. Like for me, this had to be better than using. Because don't get me wrong, using was bad, but it was also pretty cool. Like there was a lot of I had fun. And that's why I kept on going back, because I wanted the fun, but the fun had stopped. Recovery for me is that. Like I have a great life, and the things that I have now, like I don't want to give this up. I have no desire to end up in treatment again, and so no matter what happens to me in my recovery, and bad things have happened, like I was unemployed for a long time, which is hard. I'm busy, like I need to have a job. Like I go quite mad if I'm not doing idle hands and devil's plaything and all of that kind of stuff. But I didn't use, I've had a relationship, broken up from that relationship, didn't end up with restraining orders. That's a bonus. Like my life is just so good now, And so I'm going to kind of end there. But I'm just so grateful for this program. I'm grateful for the people that I have. All of the best people in my life are people in this fellowship who know me, they'll sometimes call me on my stuff. Some of them are the people who will call me on my stuff. Some of them are the people who will call me when I'm not calling them, because I'm super self-reliant. And it's amazing to have that sense of belonging. So yeah, that's where I'm going to end. I don't even know how long I spoke for. Too long. Sorry. Thanks for letting me share.